Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into a topic that's often overshadowed by its American counterpart, but is no less fascinating and complex: the history of the Mafia in Canada. From bustling city streets to quiet suburban fronts, organized crime has woven a hidden narrative through Canadian history. Let's peel back the layers. Our story begins in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. As waves of immigrants arrived from southern Italy seeking new opportunities, they brought with them cultural traditions and strong family bonds. Within these communities, certain individuals also brought the seeds of secret societies like the Sicilian Mafia and the Calabrian 'Ndrangheta. These weren't large, structured organizations at first. Instead, they were small, clan-based groups operating in cities like Montreal and Hamilton. Their initial activities were often small-scale extortion, preying on their own communities through a practice known as the Black Hand or La Mano Nera. Business owners would receive threatening letters demanding money marked with a black handprint. Fear and a deep-seated distrust of official authorities meant these crimes often went unreported, allowing these early groups to establish a foothold. The real turning point, the moment Canadian organized crime truly leveled up, was the era of Prohibition. When the United States enacted the Volstead Act in 1920, banning the production and sale of alcohol, it created an economic opportunity of unprecedented scale. Canada, with its long, porous border and varying provincial laws on alcohol, became the perfect supplier for the American thirst. Suddenly, those small, scattered criminal factions had a golden ticket. They began working with American mob families, like those in Buffalo and Detroit, to create vast smuggling networks. Figures like Rocco Puri in Hamilton, often called the king of the bootleggers, rose to prominence. He and his partner, Bessie Starkman, built a massive empire smuggling liquor across the Great Lakes. This era was transformative. It wasn't just about money. It was about building connections, logistics, and a level of sophistication that hadn't existed before. Canadian mobsters became crucial partners to their American cousins, forging alliances that would last for decades. As Prohibition ended, these now wealthy and well-organized groups needed new revenue streams. They diversified: gambling, loan sharking, labor, racketeering, and, increasingly, the drug trade became their new focus. The post-war economic boom in Canada provided fertile ground. Cities were growing, construction was rampant, and unions held significant power. The Mafia infiltrated these sectors, controlling contracts, siphoning funds, and asserting their influence in ways that were often invisible to the public. Montreal, in particular, became the nexus of this activity. The city was ruled for decades by the Cotrone crime family, a Calabrian clan with deep ties to the Bonanno family in New York. The Cotrones, led by Vic the Egg Cotrone, controlled a vast criminal empire. Their influence was so profound that they essentially acted as a Canadian branch of the Bonanno family, overseeing everything from gambling dens in Montreal to the burgeoning heroin trade. Montreal became a key transit point for narcotics heading from Europe to the United States, a lucrative business that cemented the city's status as a major hub for North American organized crime. For a long time, many Canadians, and even law enforcement, were in a state of denial. The common belief was that the Mafia was an American problem. This perception was shattered in the 1970s with the establishment of the Quebec Police Commission Inquiry into Organized Crime, better known as the CICO Commission. Through televised hearings, the public was given a shocking look into the depth of the mob's infiltration into the province's economy and politics. Informants and witnesses detailed a world of corruption, violence, and intimidation that reached the highest levels of society. It was a wake-up call, forcing authorities to acknowledge the deeply entrenched nature of the problem. The Commission's findings led to new laws and a more aggressive stance from law enforcement, marking the beginning of a long and difficult battle. The 1970s and 80s were a period of intense conflict and change. In Montreal, a brutal internal war erupted. The Calabrian Cotroni family, who had dominated for so long, was challenged by a new, ambitious Sicilian faction led by the Rizzuto family. Niccolò Rizzuto and his son Vito had a different vision. They wanted more autonomy from the New York families and a larger piece of the pie, especially the incredibly profitable drug trade. This ambition led to a violent series of assassinations and power struggles that tore through the Montreal underworld. By the early 1980s, the Sicilians had won. The Rizzuto family, under Vito's charismatic and diplomatic leadership, ascended to become the most powerful crime family in Canadian history. Vito Rizzuto was a different kind of Don. Unlike the old-school bosses, he was known for his ability to build bridges and forge alliances. He brought together not just other Italian groups, but also the Hells Angels, Irish gangs like the West End Gang, and various street crews. He acted as a mediator, a chairman of the board for the criminal underworld, ensuring that everyone got a piece of the action and that conflicts were minimized. Under his reign, the Montreal Mafia became a global player, involved in massive international drug trafficking schemes, money laundering, and even large-scale construction fraud. Their influence was so pervasive that they were alleged to have a hand in major projects, including the construction of Montreal's Olympic Stadium. The Rizzuto organization was a sophisticated, multi-ethnic consortium of crime, a far cry from the small black hand gangs of the early 20th century. For nearly 3 decades, Vito Rizzuto, nicknamed the Teflon Don for his ability to avoid prosecution, was the undisputed king of Canadian crime. But no empire lasts forever. The beginning of the end for the Rizzuto dynasty came in the early 2000s. First, a sweeping police investigation called Project Colisi gathered mountains of evidence, wiretaps, and testimony, crippling the organization's leadership. Then, in 2004, Vito Rizzuto was extradited to the United States to face charges related to a 1981 triple murder in Brooklyn, a ghost from his past association with the Bonanno family. He was convicted and sent to prison. With Vito gone, a power vacuum opened up, and his enemies, who had been waiting in the shadows for years, began to move. What followed was one of the bloodiest periods in Canadian mob history. In a stunning series of events, key members of the Rizzuto family were systematically eliminated. Vito's son, Nick Jr., was gunned down in broad daylight. His father, Niccolò Rizzuto, was taken out by a sniper's bullet while he was in his own kitchen. His brother-in-law and acting boss also vanished, presumed dead. It was a complete dismantling of the family's power structure. When Vito Rizzuto was released from prison in 2012, he returned to a city in chaos. His empire was in ruins. His family was decimated. What followed was a brief but brutal campaign of revenge, as Vito allegedly settled old scores against those he believed had betrayed him. But his return was short-lived. In December 2013, Vito Rizzuto died, not from a bullet, but from complications of lung cancer. His death marked the true end of an era. So, where does the Mafia in Canada stand today? It's a far more fractured and complex landscape. The old, centralized, hierarchical structure of the Rizzuto era is gone. In its place, a variety of smaller, competing factions have emerged. In Ontario, the Ndrangheta, the Calabrian Mafia, has quietly grown to become a dominant force, particularly in the Greater Toronto area. They are known for their deep family ties, their code of silence, and their powerful connections to global drug trafficking networks. Police have called the Ndrangheta a top-tier threat, deeply embedded in the local economy through money laundering, in real estate, and other legitimate businesses. In Montreal, the situation is even more fluid, with a mix of an older Sicilian generation, Calabrian cells, and independent players all vying for a piece of the action. The power structure is constantly shifting, with alliances forming and breaking, leading to sporadic bursts of violence. The modern Canadian mob is less visible, more decentralized, but in many ways just as dangerous. They've adapted to the modern world, using technology and complex financial schemes to hide their activities. From the Black Hand extortion rackets of the early 1900s to the global drug empires of the 21st century, the story of the Mafia in Canada is a tale of adaptation, violence, and power. It's a reminder that organized crime is not just a relic of the past, but a persistent and evolving challenge. It's a hidden history that has shaped our cities and continues to operate in the shadows. Thank you so much for watching. What part of this history did you find most surprising? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. See you next time.